Tell me a story. What kind of story do you want to hear? Something that moves you. Hamnet comes to us from filmmaker Chloe Zhao, who did Nomadland, Eternals, as well as other projects, and was written by and based on a novel by Maggie O'Farrell, and features the incredibly gifted pair of Jessie Buckley and Paul Mescal, who are such uber talented actors. Give them all the goddamn roles. Your movie cannot go wrong if you have either of them, or in the case of Hamnet, both of them in it, because Hamnet is one of the best films of the goddamn year. You will laugh, you will cry, you will want to just basically put your head in your hands and say, my God, what have I done? And as the days go by, we see Hamnet, which did inspire the play Hamlet. And this is told from Agnes's perspective. Agnes, played by the gifted and uber talented Jessie Buckley, who I have loved for a few years. Men was a role in particular that turned me on to her, but she really is great in just a lot of stuff, whether it's something that has a fairly good budget or it's something that's lavish with praise, practically slathered like butter on a fucking roll. This movie is phenomenal. I got to catch an early access screening. Even though this has been out of film festivals and other people have seen it, I got to see this about 10 days early. I paid $18 to drive down, 30 or so miles one way, so 60-mile round trip, to catch this film, and I'm so glad I did. If you know the book, then you know where this thing's going to go. I have not read the book. I may actually go and read the book. I may go back to Barnes & Noble. I almost stopped by Barnes & Noble to see if this was available. That is how much Hamnet deeply moved me. And I mean, yes, there are familiar beats and everything, and if you know the book, you know where this is going to go. But really what it is not just the strength of these two. It's all, and by the way, this is a really cool thing. If anybody saw the early access screen, you were probably able to get this postcard book. But I'm going to share a few little things from it. One, there's Jessie. Just look at her. She's so phenomenal. And here's this part. This is from early on in the movie. I do want to say this isn't necessarily spoilers. We have Jessie right here. We have the kids, and I want to shout the kids out here really quick. You have Olivia Lyons, who plays Judith. You have I couldn't pronounce the girl's name to play Susanna. Oh, don't you cry for me. Because you don't come from Alabama, because it wasn't in existence yet, with a banjo on your knee. But the one I really want to shout is, and let me get this right, Jacob Juppe, who plays Hamnet, who is such a gifted young lad. The rocket needs to be strapped to this kid. This kid is going to go fucking places. If he wants to stick with goddamn acting, he is going to do some great stuff. I'm not going to share anything else. Look at that shot of Paul Mescal. Look at that handsome individual. By the way, Paul Mescal, however you say it, All of Us Strangers was a movie that deeply moved me, and that was a movie that made me realize just how good he is. I mean, he's been good in other stuff, but this is so fucking good from the opening scene all the way until the very last frame. There's just so much sumptuous scenery. Jessie is giving an award-winning performance in every single scene she's in. There are soul-crushing moments, especially in that second act. That second half made me... It made me glad I watched it, but God, I didn't feel like moving. I was rooted to my seat. I haven't felt like this since watching Past Lives or All of Us Strangers. But this tells the story from Agnes's perspective, so we get to see a lot of Jessie Buckley, which is never a bad thing, by the way. Not just because of talent, but she looks good, and she has this just ethereal quality about her, but her and Will meet, and they end up having a family, the kids that I showed. And since it's in such a small village, Will has to go off to work. Yes, Will, William Shakespeare, in case you weren't quite fucking getting that. And while he's away, the children will play, and Agnes will go back to her roots and stuff like that. And really, I just like how this let Jessie flex her acting muscles, which she doesn't really... You give her an inch, she will take a fucking mile. But there are other great people in the cast. There's Justine Mitchell, who plays Joan. There's Zach Wishart. There's Zach Wishart and James Linterin, who are Joan's boys. They are two very capable young actors. They were only in a few scenes, but they were absolutely just, magnificent. Louisa Harland was the mother. I've seen her and stuff as well. She's actually been in quite a few things lately. Emily Watson, yes, the one that was the blind woman in Red Dragon, plays Mary. She's terrific. Noah Jupe, of all people, is in this. Yeah. You might recognize that name, by the way. Be surprised at what else he's been in recently that I reviewed. But those three kids that I showed on that, again, I have to fucking show this here. But these three kids, so fucking good. So fucking good. I mean, just from scene to scene to scene, this movie just goes from strength to strength to strength. And there are, for those who know what, like what happened in this book, there's not necessarily spoilers to be had, but we see what inspired Hamlet, or at least we see an interpretation of what inspired Hamlet. The whole point is, this is just so good and so rich and needs to be nominated for a bunch of awards. Cinematography, music, the score is fucking phenomenal. But Jessie deserves a Golden Globe nomination and an Oscar nomination for her role. I am goddamn serious. She's fucking wonderful in this. Pieces of dialogue that'll stick with me. Oh Jesus, I'm going to talk about it in spoilers and try not to cry, but there's a couple scenes between the kids. Good grief. Also, childbirth bothers you. There are some scenes in this that might. It's not like that act in Men. You know what I'm talking about, because Alex Garland ain't got nothing to do with this. But it is just really, really phenomenally smooth, emotional, and one of the best films of the year. I'm going to get into spoilers. In theaters, Thanksgiving weekend. If you want to check it out, 3, 2, 1, spoilers. So, we start off with Agnes in the woods, and we find out a little bit later that she's known as the Forest Witch, that a lot of her, multiple generations of her family lineage, the women in particular, have been tied to the forest as far as using herbs, and, much of the earth, like using thyme, oregano, too much spice, so little time, but using stuff to basically give back to the earth, heal your family, take care of yourself and stuff like that. And she's done very well for herself. Paul plays Will perfectly as somebody that is struggling. The father is a full-on dick who sees his younger children as successful, but sees Will as a failure, a complete failure. So we get a whirlwind romance, and we do get a lot of fades to black and then going so it's chapter breaks, which I admit that I liked. I wasn't sure at first, but by about the third time I was on board with it. I thought maybe we were all having a series of small strokes in the theater. But no, they end up having a whirlwind romance. They end up, getting married, but let's say the families in particular, that seem to be the only two families in this small village, they don't exactly approve. Basically, Will's father has a bunch of debts that Will is trying to work off and everything, and they don't really go much into that, which is probably just as well, hence the playwriting. Also him trying to carve out his own name. I mean, William Shakespeare. There you go. But Agnes is with child pretty early on, so the family's like, you know what? We're going to be there. We're going to do that. And Agnes lost her mother, so the one that's helping raise her, or has helped raise her, and has helped raising the other kids, not exactly a great woman, has not been a great woman. Though I do think we need to point out that both Paul and Jessie are at least in their 30s. I mean, I think they're in their 30s. I know Jessie's in her 30s. I mean, I believe Paul's at least in his early 30s. Whole point, it's just kind of funny they treat him as these star-crossed lovers. Oh, wait, that's another Shakespeare play. It's kind of funny they play it up like that. Oh, they're young lovers. And, I mean, it's fine. It's fine. It's okay. Let's just ignore that. But what I like about it is she has the first child, Susanna. And things are going good. But there's also cracks starting to develop with Will, because he's starting to go nuts because he's still under his dad's thumb. He wants to make his own name, but he also loves Agnes and loves Susanna. But Agnes comes up with the idea, talking to, I believe, her brother. Great job by the actor playing the brother, by the way. Really, really good job there. I can't remember the guy's name. I apologize, but he's really fucking good. And he gets to he basically is able to get Will's dad to agree to send him to London, earn some money, that kind of stuff, help out the family. Because even though they're doing well, they live off the earth and they're doing well. It's still tough because, this is the 16th and a half century. Had the silly thing in reverse. And they're going through their problem. Actually, I think it's the late 16th century. But I digress. there. So, essentially, he goes off, and we see Agnes raising the kids. Now, she's also pregnant again. And she gives birth to a son named Hamnet. Hamnet and Hamlet, by the way, mean the same thing. That's a description that's shown in the very beginning. And basically, she's like, oh, wow, I have a son. And she always is talking about the fact that her two children will be there at her deathbed. She thinks that she's not going to survive. And Susanna, by the way, is a few years older. I don't know how much older. When she has these twins, and essentially, she thinks, okay, that's it. Turns out she's having more pain. She has twins. So, Hamnet was born first, and then Judith comes a little bit later. Judith, however, stillborn, not making any noise. But hired help, I forget her name, really, really, really good actress, by the way. Even though she's only in a few scenes, there's such pitch perfect acting in this. So I would encourage you guys to go check out the cast and check out their other stuff. But, her child's stillborn. She's like, give the child to me. Give me my baby. Give me my child. And she does this, and, coddling, and a mother's love knows no bounds. And the kid comes back. The kid's alive. It's alive. That was the first sad moment. God, that was sad. Oh, that was so sad. But then, we have another, after it's obvious that the two twins are alive. And I'm going to crumple these up because I don't need these anymore. But we see the kids are a little bit older. And meanwhile, Will is in London. He's bopping back and forth, traveling. And traveling wasn't easy then. It was by horse. I don't even know if they had many horse-drawn carriages in that area. But he's working on his plays, trying to make it big. And also, he did stand up to his dad at one point before he left, when his dad tried to hit him with a belt. And then he grabbed it, and he slammed him up against the wall. He said, that is the last time you will do that to me. And that was a good scene. That was powerful stuff right there. So he's in London. We see some shots of London where there's a plague, a pestilence, whatever. It seems like London's always dealing with fucking plagues. But first, Nosferatu, that was the plague of that movie being too long, but I digress. We see that, and I really like how London is seen as this dark place, until later on. This dark place, because he's happy to be contributing and working hard, but he feels alone. And meanwhile, we get a clear, look at how, as opposed to a foggy look, of how close Hamnet and Judith are. Even at one point when they're like dressing up and trying to, play different, trying to play one and the other. And just having a lot of really cute moments for kids. It was really nice. And Olivia and Jacob just great in these roles. But as things go on, as he's coming back, he does come back for a bit, but then he has to leave, and Judith ends up falling ill. Now, this has always been on Agnes's mind, because Agnes, got her back to life, but she's always been afraid. She always wants to cuddle her more, and even though she loves Hamnet, she loves all her kids, but she was afraid about Judith, and was afraid, because of congestion, that kind of stuff. She mentioned that to Will. Don't know if we can move to London. Don't worry, I'm going to try to find some more land here, and we can, or somewhere nearby, I think it was the same village, where we can build our dream house and be okay. But then Judith, unfortunately, then ends up falling ill. Now, I'm skipping over some finer points here because there's a lot of interactions with the family and stuff like that. But really, this is about getting to the second half of this movie, which is the whole point of watching movies. You kind of don't want to watch it backwards unless you're fucking Memento. But Judith falls ill, and she tries everything she can. Agnes tries everything, every herb, everything. I'm trying not to cry. Everything to make it work. And she's not all that sure about this. And then Hamnet crawls to bed with his sister because he's worried. And he says, my life, I give it to you. Live, Judith. There's also these shots of this cave, and goes back to his story that Will told about, a lover going into the underworld to retrieve his lost love and the past, and he can't look back at her and has to go forward. I don't have to really say the names here. You know what I'm talking about. But he can't look back at her. He has to go to the gates of the underworld and get out. But then he can't resist. He looks back and she's not there. Because you can't bring back the dead. You can't cheat death. And that's the thing. It looks like Judith is going to pass. And then Hamnet does that. And basically things are fine. She's fine. She's recovering. But then Hamnet takes it on. He takes it on. He gets the pestilence. And Agnes, this time, it doesn't work. She can't save her kid. There's that scene between those two kids, just filming right above like that, it's really good. But just Jessie, the pain and anguish in her voice, on her face, and it's reverberating through the whole theater. Absolutely soul crushing. God damn it! It just you just want to walk into traffic after that. But it was really good. Really, really good stuff. And then we still have the latter half. Will gets back, hearing that Judith is sick. And he had a bond with Hamnet. Even doing, wooden stick sword fighting. All that stuff added up to just him feeling disconnected. Now, he loves Agnes and he loves his children and everything, but he had this inspiration to go back and do this play. And Agnes, she had her idea to send him away, but then it had, for his own well-being and also for mental, that kind of stuff, and just be creative. But she also could just see that, the father needed to be there, and it's a catch-22, especially back then. I mean, you could bop a lot quicker back and forth now, but back then, less so. And there's some heartbreaking scenes between these two. Agnes feels disconnected from Will, but knows that he has to go. Doesn't like it. He ends up going back. Agnes is still torn up about losing Hamnet, and then, is still there for her two kids, don't get me wrong. But it's just absolutely crushing her, as it would crush any parent. Especially, and that's something you carry in your body for 9 months. Changing and warping your body chemistry. I mean, I've seen a lot of stuff about motherhood being fucked with this year. I mean, you had, if I had legs, I'd kick you. You had Die My Love. If I had legs, I'd kick you was better. It's Sorry Baby, because that talks about, kind of pseudo-motherhood. You can just tell me. Fuck. Anyway, this leads to a revelation that Will is doing a play called Hamlet. And Agnes doesn't understand, but it's like, okay, she goes with family. And she even gets it delivered by her mother that she says is not her mother, which she is, and she's a woman that helped raise her, but her mother died when she was younger. So they go to London. They see this. We see this play set up. And we also get a little bit of a scene just before this with Paul Mescal thinking of diving off a goddamn pier. And then he comes up with the stuff. To die, to sleep, to dream, whether it be to be or not to be. All that, all those lines from Hamlet that, we all know. We all know them. Jumbled around in my head because of how much jumbling of emotions I'm doing here. But the to die, to sleep, the MST3K fan in me just can't help but hear it that way. But basically what ends up being the final scene, is Agnes at the play, and it's a pretty nice open theater, actually. It's a good thing it wasn't a rainy day, because it is England, or London, which is in England, last time I checked. Unless we're going to London, Ontario, and I don't think London, Ontario actually was a thing in the 16th and a half century. Had the silly thing in reverse, already said that, trying here, but we get Noah Jupe, who is playing Hamlet. Now, the thing is Agnes is getting more and more frustrated. Don't you say my son's name. Don't you say this. It's about, obviously, the king's ghost, that kind of stuff. All this stuff going on. Father's ghost, all this. And the fight between, Hamlet, the poison, all that. And it's told beautifully, and some really, really great imagery here. And what's really amazing is just Noah was good. Paul was really good as Will, playing the father. Reflecting on the fact that he felt distant, and he felt like, he should have been there for his son, and this is his way of saying goodbye. Well, I almost made it. But the look on Jessie Buckley's face, it turns from being frustrated, because of emotions and everything, to her being in trance, everybody being in trance as this thing goes on. And it ends, and she's realizing this is him working out all his grief, and that's why he wanted to do this. He wanted to create something people to remember, but also it was the way for him to deal with his grief, and that he still loves his wife and children, and wishes he could have been there for his son. And then you got, the guy playing Hamlet, doing the whole thing where he's like, he's poisoned and this kind of stuff or whatever. And reaching out. And one thing that I did neglect to mention until now is that Agnes was kind of, the one thing she could do is hold people's hands, do something like this, a pressure point, and see people's lives, see if they were kind or whatever. There was even something a little bit earlier after Hamnet died where, where Will put his hand out. She grabbed it and said, "What do you see?" She said, "Nothing." Ouch. But the scene where he's doing that and she grabs his hand, everybody else is reaching out their goddamn hands. Well, this terrific score is playing. This terrific score is just smashing you in the head. And it ends, a lot of tears flowing. In the audience, too, there were a lot of people crying. But in the audience, in the theater, in the movie, that was watching this play go on, I need to specify. And, yeah, it was her realizing it was necessary, and this is how he's going to deal with his grief. But now it's something that people will remember. Yeah, A+. This is one of the best films of the year. I'm going to go do something to take my mind off of this. So, that is easily one of the best films of the year. I still have a few others to watch, like Sentimental Value, No Other Choice. It was just an accident. I got a few to watch that I really hope drop either in theaters where I can get to them or on streaming by the end of the year. But yeah, Hamnet is A+, A-grade material. A-grade meat, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Give Jessie Buckley all the goddamn award consideration. And the kid playing Hamnet, phenomenal. Really phenomenal acting all the way down. Agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe. Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rentlin. Until we revisit tragedy again, happy trails to you.